and kick us off with some music. Good morning, Jessie.
Good morning. So I had some things planned, but now that you said the word rest, I have something else. This is a song called Healing, and it's all just about resting in the arms of love. Can you feel my love? Let it wrap you up in a warm body. It is more than enough that you are simply breathing right now. You bring your highs, you bring your lows. You try to prove to me you don't deserve anything. I'll keep holding the space for you to simply be here right now. And it's a hard road to loving yourself. It's a hard thing to believe it enough to be loved by somebody else. You may be lost, you may be shaken and confused, but none of this is gonna dissuade me from loving you. And all this darkness is just a feeling, and it's feelings that make you grow. And when you're growing, it means you're healing, making your way to where you let resistance go. And I can show you the way, and I will reassure you that through it all, I'm gonna stay. Won't you let me in? I am standing at your door, waiting. I don't care if it's a mess in there. I just wanna see you shine as you are. And it's a hard road to loving yourself. It's a hard thing to believe it enough to be loved by somebody else. You may be lost, you may be shaken and confused, but none of this is gonna dissuade me from loving you. All this darkness is just a feeling, and it's feelings that make you grow. And when you're growing, it means you're healing, making your way to where you let resistance go. And I can show you the way, and I will reassure you that through it all, I'm gonna stay. I'm gonna stay. Ooh, I'm gonna stay. Ooh. Thank you.
Oh, that was lovely. What a
Thank
beautiful
you.
song.
Thank
That
you.
really touched my heart. Thank you for that. Oh, well, our practitioner of the day this morning is Reverend Leslie Massopust, and I'm going to invite her to open us with a prayer, and she sent me some lovely quotes that I'll share.
Please join me in consciousness as we give thanks to Spirit's gift of the wonderful, quiet, gentle showers that we've been having here in the San Diego area. We know that this is one of the ways that Spirit blesses Mother Nature as it allows Mother Nature to bring forth the colorful, fragrant flowers that we see and smell, the new blossoms in the trees that will soon bring forth fruit, and all of the other plants that are in the process of growing, knowing that they will be food for our bodies. We know that this is part of the prosperity circle of life, that it is a circle of give and take. And we are thankful for this lesson this morning, knowing that it is something that will nourish our soul, and we will be able then to share that with others. Not only the lesson, but something that someone may see or say that touches us. We are grateful for Spirit at work in our lives. And we let these go, knowing that they are so, and we are blessed by them. And so it is. This first quote comes from the Desai people, who are an indigenous sect that practices Hinduism. And what this says is, time is like a river. You cannot touch the same water twice, because the flow that has passed will never pass again. Enjoy every moment of life. And then Paul Brandt tells us, don't tell me the sky's the limit when there are footprints on the moon. And Ralph Waldo Emerson tells us, it is a happy talent. I have a picture over my quote right now. It is a happy talent to know how to play. So let's join together in a moment of silence. And as you do, imagine that you're next to a babbling brook and it is gently flowing downstream, and how this feeds you at a spiritual level. So let us now come back to our virtual room as we now do our March affirmation. Today's Spirit calls me out to play, and I answer the call. I play in the imagination and the infinite possibility of divine mind. In the freedom and expansion of play, my heart is lifted by the lightness of Spirit. Today, I laugh, sing, and pray. I am joyous, and so it is.
Thank you so much, Leslie. That was beautiful. So, Jessie, you have some more music for us?
I do. I always wonder, like, energy flow wise, do you guys want to like kick it up for a second, or do you want to like sit in peace some more?
Let's kick it up.
All right, let's do that. This one's called Something Better. sticking with the resting theme, it's all about resting in the knowing that what you want is coming to you. And if it's not coming to you, then something way better that you can't even imagine is coming to you. Sometimes it feels like my heart is stuck in a revolving door. It can get me down so much, I don't even want to mess with it anymore. Oh, that too familiar feeling, oh, I know it well, but I don't let it get too far. No, I'm too good at staying cool now. Yes, I am learning the art, and I'm getting good at letting go, yeah. Getting good at giving it over, 'cause I know it ain't in my hands. I'm getting good at letting go, yeah. Getting good at giving it over, 'cause I know, though I do not understand, my soul's always got something better planned. Yeah. And when the shadow comes creeping in, like a thief from my past, I turn on the light by remembering only my soul knows my path. And I'm getting good at letting go, yeah. Getting good at giving it over, 'cause I know it ain't in my hands. I'm getting good at letting go, yeah. Getting good at giving it over, 'cause I know, though I do not understand, my soul's always got something better planned. And I am unburdened, yes, I am free when I believe, yeah. If I just keep trusting, if I keep the faith, I know I'll see. When I let go and rest, when I know when I let go, and I know that my soul's always God. Yes, my soul's always God. Oh, my soul's always God. Something better planned. Yeah. Something better is coming along. So why don't we all just take a chill pill and rest up so we can keep playing when the time is right. Thank you.
Oh, that's delightful. And isn't that the truth? Our soul, that inner wisdom, always has some better plan that we could never even have imagined how good it could be, right? So, oh, thank you so much for that. And good morning. Welcome to One Heart, One Mind's online service, Sunday service. You know, and all year, since the beginning of this year, we've been exploring the yearly theme, which is the inner life. And then we've elaborated on those through different themes, monthly themes. But the inner life, the consciousness within us that connects us to the infinite life of God, Spirit, the all that is, whatever name we love to call it. The consciousness, this consciousness, the presence is where all things are sourced. Everything comes from this one source. Everything is created from here, and everything is sustained from here. Without this source, no life, right? In our Declaration of Principles, written by our founder, Ernest Holmes, in his brilliance, he wrote this: we believe in the unity of all life, and that the highest God and the innermost God is one God. And that really is the essence of this theme, the inner life, that there is no difference between this larger life and who and what we are at the depths of our being. Science of Mind teaches that we are one with this living presence. We can be nothing else, that it created us and it continues to sustain us. We say that God is all there is. And that means that nothing happens outside of the activity of this one presence. And if that's true, then we live our lives within this one presence, within this divine activity. We can't be separated from it. But we can imagine that we're separated from it, but we aren't ever truly separated from it. We can't be. No God, no life, no us. But we teach, and here's the thing, that we can consciously develop, nurture, cultivate an intimate relationship with this presence. We can experience our oneness with it. And as we do that, we allow God's Spirit, the divine, to inform all of our human activities, all of our endeavors, all of our interactions, so that we can consciously live as expressions of this divine presence, of this divine life, in and through our humanity, our everyday human lives. And there are so many ways, there are many, many, many ways to nurture and cultivate an intimate relationship with this Spirit, this presence. And this month, we've been exploring how we can use play, humor, and laughter as spiritual practices to deepen our connection to Spirit. And how play, humor, and laughter can be used to tap into the flow that we're always talking about, that divine flow of life, and how we can allow it to move through us effortlessly, through the idea of the lightness of play and humor and laughter and smiling. We talked about last week, I talked about how smiling is so contagious, and even that lifts us into this elevated state of being that's contagious, much like gratitude or yawning, even. It's contagious. And as we expand our lives and we invite other people to do exactly the same thing, to expand their lives. So I was talking about this earlier before the service when we were doing our meditation, that curiously, this morning's focus really changes gears a bit. Today's talk is entitled Resting in the One. And at first I thought, wow, that's kind of an odd shift to go from, the aliveness and the activity of play and laughter to the quietness and the contemplation of rest and renewal. It almost seemed at odds with play and humor. But the more I thought about it, and the more I explored the idea, the more I realized how rest is actually a necessary part of our human play, and how it can allow us to open even more deeply to the flow of the divine that we access when we're playing, when we're using humor, when we're laughing and smiling. Living in oneness with this indwelling Spirit, which we're exploring this year, and being these conscious expressions of the divine presence really involves listening to our own intuitive voice. That still small voice of the one within us. And that requires silence and quietude. It requires regular periods of rest to give us time to listen from within to the guidance of that divine wisdom that's already within us and is always speaking to us. And rest then becomes a natural and important part of a life of play and humor and laughter and smiling and standing in that divine life flow. Ernest Holmes told us that, I have my quote, the thing works for us by working through us and is us always. You know, he told us that life is dynamic, that life never stands still, even in our moments of rest and quietude. Life is always changing and becoming, and we are avenues for this expression. You know, and all around us, we have evidence of life's creative process. We don't have to look too far. We talk about this all the time, how the invisible life is constantly becoming the visible life. You know, wherever we look, we see change and movement and flow. Nature is always moving upward, and we see it in every seed, being the gardener that I am, every bud and flower and bush and tree. I'm witnessing it now in my butterfly garden that I just replanted. We see it in birth and we see it in death, and life is always moving forward in this kind of great crescendo of life. And while it may seem a little strange that in the buzz of life's activity, we're told that the path of power and fulfillment is to sit quietly in inactivity and to work only within the mind. I'm sure this is true for many of the people that are on this call and people that are listening to it, but I have proved to myself over and over again that this is true. That everything begins in consciousness and then it outpictures in my life and in the world. And yet sometimes still it sounds counterintuitive to me. You know, I'm such a doer, and I know that many of us are. And I usually feel more comfortable when I'm busily moving things around in the outside world. And certainly there is a time for action in our world, but first we must sit quietly and listen to the intuitive voice within us. We must become familiar with its nature, to understand, to experience its nature. We have to sit quietly to come into relationship with whatever it is, the essence of whatever it is that we want to say yes to. We did a meditation before the service about focusing on the waves of potential that we want to say yes to. And the way that we get there is through that quiet inactivity, that silent quietude, which allows us to hear that inner wisdom. You know, I'm reminded of what we do with the practice of visioning. What do? We sit quietly. We invite in the wisdom of spirit, and then we explore ways to bring that wisdom into expression in the world, in our lives. You know, our actions are most effective when we begin with non-action, when we first concern ourselves with coming into relationship with what already exists in potential within divine mind, within God and spirit. And then we move into action and we listen for guidance, for ways in which we can bring that into action. So one of the things I did in preparing for today's message is I pulled out a wonderful book that I love to look at. It's called Sabbath by Wayne Mueller. I know I've used it before for some of my Sunday messages, but I love what he writes about the Sabbath. I love what he writes about this idea of rest leading us into a greater knowing of our own divine nature, you know, and it's important to note that he uses the idea of the Sabbath not as a particular day of the week, but any time that we pause for rest and renewal. I have a quote from him that I want to share. And this is such a lovely explanation of Sabbath that I feel I really must share it with you. He writes, "The Sabbath is a patch of ground secured by a fence. When we withdraw from the endless choices afforded us, and there are a lot, and listen and uncover what is ultimately important and remember what is quietly sacred. Sabbath restrictions on work and activity actually create a space of great freedom. Without these self-imposed restrictions, we may never be truly free." Oh, I love that idea. Without our own commitment and focus to listen and to silence the noise around us in the world, we may never really be free. We may never hear that intuitive voice speak to us of what is ours to do. You know, it's in the space we create for rest and renewal that draws us into the larger life of God, you know, into the infinite possibilities that can inform the rest of our lives. And then when we rest, we interact with that quiet play of spirit. Do you know what I'm talking about? The quiet play is that momentum that we feel when we're in that experience of the divine, and it adds depth and substance to our entire lives. It's here, the more we become familiar with divine nature, that we can express divine nature. And as we let go of the idea that we need to be constantly in motion, I'm speaking for myself here, doing some kind of work and accomplishing something, that's when we open the door to God's vision. That's when, as Jessie said in her song, that the soul has something better in mind for us. That's where we access what that soul, what the inner wisdom has in mind for us. And honestly, it's always better than I could ever have imagined, you know, and it gets me to that deep joy and the playfulness of life and the fulfillment of life. I love that. You know, life has a rhythm. It has a balance and a harmony that incorporates all the aspects that are necessary for the expression of good. You know, and in that kind of dance of life, that song of life, we encounter lots of movement and activity, but we also encounter the necessity. It's almost a requirement to rest and renew. Again, I'm going to speak from Wayne Mueller's book, Sabbath, and he writes about the importance of rest within a creative life. Oh, you know what? I didn't write it down on there. I wrote it on here. I will get it. He wrote, Oscar Castro Nueves is an accomplished guitarist and composer. He writes musical scores for movies. He says it is common in dramatic scenes to gradually bring the music to crescendo and then stop, rest, silence. I love this part. This is perfect. He writes, whatever is spoken on that screen in that silence is heard more clearly, more powerfully. The words are lent an additional potency because they are spoken out of silence. Amazing things are born out of that silence. And that's what rest brings us. It's in the space we create between outward activity that we truly hear the wisdom that's within us. And we are a part of the divine infinite wisdom. There's so much to be expressed. And Mueller also gives this example that I know we're all going to, we all have heard and will all understand. He invites us to listen to the most famous speech that Martin Luther King Jr. ever gave, the I Have a Dream speech. And he wrote in his book that to listen to the cadence of the line that we're most familiar with. Free at last, rest. Free at last, rest. Thank God Almighty, we are free at last. Listen to how potent that is. Free at last. Free at last. Thank God Almighty, we are free at last. We can hear the rest. Can you hear the potency that he was talking about in the rest? You know, we hear it in musical scores, in great speeches. We see it in nature, and we feel it in our own lives. You know, sometimes those moments of rest and silence make us uncomfortable. But when we learn to rest there and to just sit and let whatever unfold will unfold, there is value in there. There is brilliance and mystery. It's mystical to rest, to pause, to expand, to express the divine within the spaces. Often when I'm doing meditation, especially if I'm doing meditation about health or or something. I like to think of the spaces in between the subatomic particles. In that emptiness is the wisdom and the action and the light of the divine itself. Telling these little subatomic particles how to arrange the atoms so that they can express the most good, the divine good. You know, we pause, we listen, we reflect on the inner wisdom of the divine that always comes bubbling up in those moments of rest, in the spaces that we create. And we do create. We are responsible to create those little pauses, or if not create them, to at least notice them. You know, as I was preparing today's message, I realized how much I need to listen to my own call for rest. You know, I was raised in a hustling, bustling house where you always had to be doing something. You know, there were 7 kids. There were 9 people in this household. You always had to be getting something done. It was sacred to be busy and buzzing around, you know, accomplishing something. You know, taking a nap was like, forbidden almost. That was definitely frowned on. It means you were being lazy and unmotivated. You know, and this has not been an easy habit for me to break. It's taken a very, very long time, and I'm still not really totally there, for me to realize and recognize the value in rest, the value in making space to connect with God, you know, and I still find myself procrastinating by looking for more important things to get done before I can rest. You know, and I think I've just been hardwired, and actually our culture hardwires us to be busy and being accomplishing, moving the pieces around in the outside world. It's a very learned pattern for us, you know, but like any other learned pattern, we are empowered to change it. It does take commitment, it does take focus, and it takes awareness. I love the word that Joe Dispenza uses. He uses the word metacognition, which is the awareness of what we're thinking and what we're feeling and the state of being that we're in as we move through our daily lives. To practice that idea of metacognition helps us to change those patterns. I ran across one more quote from Holmes, if I can find my quote page, that I thought was really applicable to today's message. You know, he says that life is what we make it, and that, and this is what I believe as well. I believe that we are meaning makers, and we are the ones who get to bring purpose to our lives. And we can do that through struggle and hardship, you know, that hard work attitude, or we can do it through play and humor and laughter and rest. And here's Holmes' quote. Love this quote. It is not necessary that if we pass on tonight, anyone should know that we ever lived. That's not the important part. All that means anything is that while we live, we live. And wherever we go from here, we keep on living. That's the idea. Holmes is assuring us that the purpose of life is life, to be present, to love, to be loved, to experience good, to experience everything that comes our way. You know, we aren't necessarily here to accomplish something or make a name for ourselves, although if that happens, there's certainly nothing wrong with that. But I believe that because the divine nature is love, that our nature is love, and that we're here to experience and express that love, to love and be loved, to contribute to Spirit's goodness in every aspect of life. You know, what matters is that we contribute to the consciousness of love, and to know that what we do, what we think, what we feel affects the whole. The collective consciousness of humanity is connected to everything we do. You know, I've been thinking about this a lot lately due to the invasion on Ukraine and what I can do to support peace and freedom. I can contribute to the collective consciousness through my thoughts and my prayers, that peace and freedom. We're here to be the presence of good, to the best of our ability, to be the presence of life, to be the presence of God. We're here to live on that growing edge of our own becoming, which is the call to life. It's the movement of life, to live in possibility rather than what already is. You know, I love the way that Joseph Campbell said it when he said to follow our bliss and spread joy. I mean, what a delightful vision for our lives. You know, I just can't believe that life is meant to be a bummer. You know, it just isn't. I think it's meant to be joyful. I think it's meant to be an expression of good and joy. And what better way to accomplish that than through the spiritual practice of play and humor and laughter and deep rest and connection. So there was one other idea that I wanted to share with you that came up for me as I was preparing today's message. And that's the idea of being enough, the idea of enough, to have enough, to do enough, to be enough. I mean, how often really do we actually believe that we have enough, that we've done enough for now, or that we are enough just the way we are? Do you ever really truly believe that you've done, and that you are enough? You know, I struggle with this sometimes. And that, I think, at least for me, I can really only speak for myself, it kind of comes from the struggle to trust life, to believe that it is not all in my hands, that I can actually trust that divine presence, that God, spirit, all that is, whatever we want to call it, that presence truly will provide for my needs. You know, I'm so used to feeling like I have to do it all on my own. And I think this comes from an old and frankly unwanted belief in lack, that there's only so much to go around and I better get my ducks in a row so that I don't run out of what I need. You know, and this belief affects my ability to truly rest, you know, to truly trust life and to rest in that trust. And I can only say up until now, because I don't want this to be true from here on out, that has certainly been my growing edge. That is where I have needed to grow the most, to be able to trust life. You know, but I'm ready to do it. I'm ready to let go of the idea that I have to do it all, and to really develop, cultivate, and nurture my ability to rest and to know that life really will support me. And I'll always have what I need. And that happens when I become more and more familiar with the nature of the divine, so that I can participate more fully with the nature of that life, that larger God life. You know, life will provide what is needed. And it will also provide what is desired, what is my heart's desire. You know, I'm sure that somewhere along the line, you have heard the story about the children of Israel wandering in the desert with Moses, and how they found themselves hungry with no food. And so they asked God for food. They asked God for help. Hey, feed us. We're hungry down here. And God fed them, the story, so the story, Old Testament story goes, with manna from heaven. And according to my little research that I did, it was bread that was supposed to be like coriander seed made into wafers with honey. It had a sweetness. But here's the thing that I found fascinating. One of the features of the manna was that it would not keep overnight. God told Moses that they should gather as much as they would like to eat at the moment, but not to save any until morning, or it would breed worms and go foul. So the metaphysical idea here really hit me, is that whatever is given is enough, that there is no lack, that we aren't going to be without. There is no limit to the supply that will be given to us. There's no scarcity in God's world. There is always enough. And that is such a great lesson. It's certainly a good lesson for me. I hope it's a good lesson for you, because I'm always thinking about, not always, but I often catch myself and have to retrain myself to be thinking about what I don't have, and have to refocus my attention on what I do have. But it just seems as if the world is shouting at us all the time about getting this or that so we can be happy, or to feel this way or that way so we feel complete, that somehow we are not enough just the way we are by the very nature of our being. But as we come into a period of rest, as I start to move within and truly connect with that source of my being, Spirit whispers into my heart, the truth, that the truth of all of us, that we are enough. We have enough. We have done enough, and we are enough just the way we are. I love this idea. It feels very restful to me. I don't have to worry. I don't have to strive. I don't have to keep searching and striving for some outside source, something outside myself to bring me what I need. It is already provided. It's already there. So I'm going to share one last thing from Wayne Mueller's book. He wrote about enough in his book, and he tells this story about a woman who came to one of his spiritual retreats, and how devoted she was to being a spiritual seeker. This had kind of become her identity, that she was a spiritual seeker. And she had traveled to sacred sites all over the world. She had attended countless workshops and retreats. And she confessed at the retreat that her time of striving had been fruitful in some ways, but she just felt tired. She was weary to the bone. And Mueller told her, look, you've been a seeker for so long. Why don't you become a finder? And he recalls in his book that that she kind of became really silent for a few minutes. And then she kind of got this look of confusion on her face, like she had never thought of it that way before. And she kind of tilted her head. When I read that, it reminded me of how my dog tilts his head when he's trying to figure something out, But he said that it sounded like she was trying to hear something that was far away. And then he recalls that she exploded into this deep belly laugh, and she sounded, a finder? What a delight. And she said that she had always been so focused on the search that she'd never taken the time to rejoice in the gift of the finding. So what if, rather than constantly seeking for what we believe we need to be happy, we become finders of what we already have, of what is sitting on the horizon of possibility for us within the divine mind and the resources of God. So this week, I'm going to invite you to find a way to rest, and not just during your spiritual practice. Yes, that's rest, but find a way to rest in other ways as well, not just in those moments of prayer and meditation, but to take time during your day. Just stop and breathe just for a moment. Reconnect just for a moment. Practice a Sabbath. I started this practice years ago, and I generally make Thursday my Sabbath. However, I have to confess that I haven't really been very good at it lately. I get sidetracked and I get meetings and, all of the excuses that I can come up with, but I need to recommit to it. We can rest during our day simply by witnessing the beauty and the wonders of what life has already set right in front of us, right in front of you. Look at all the wonderful things that you have in your life. So I just invite you to cultivate an expectancy of good, to sit in the trust of life, in the fullness of life, and to know that you have enough, that you have done enough, and that you already are enough. And there is so much more on the horizon, because life is infinite in its supply and its presence and in its play and its humor and its laughter and its ability to express in joyous ways. So I'm just going to end there, and we're going to move right into some prayer. So if you'll just take in a nice deep centering breath with me, moving into that activity of the divine, which is often buzzing and humming and moving, and often restful and still in the quietude and the richness of connection. And I know that in this beauty, in this perfection, in this deep, deep loving connection, we all live, we all move, we all exist here. And all that is God is us. And so I speak my word for and about each and every person that is on this call, that there is a shift in consciousness, an awakening, if you will. A new avenue is opened up in which we experience the play, the humor, the aliveness of life. And then we move into that restful state so that we can renew and rejuvenate and do it all again. And that we see the richness in this and the beauty and the gift in this, knowing that everything is always already provided, that we have enough, we've done enough, we are enough, God is enough. We trust life, we play in his essence, and we move forward with a momentum that is carrying us through effortlessly. I'm so grateful. I'm so grateful for this new way of seeing and being and existing in the one life of the divine. So I just relax in that, and with deep, deep gratitude, knowing that my gratitude and my thanksgiving opens me up to even more. So I relax in that, knowing all is well. I release my word, knowing that it is caught by law and makes its way into demonstration into our humanity. So for this and so much more, I simply say thank you. I allow it to be, and together we say, and so it is. And there we have it. Okay. So Lisa is doing our benediction for us today. And so I'm going to invite her to do our time of conscious giving. And I will put up the ways in which you can give to our center. Take it away, Lisa. Lisa, you're still muted, sweetie.
So foolish. So coming from that space of contemplating the abundance that we have already in our life, and the fact that it's simply there, and that we have the one spirit that is the cause, that is the gifter of all that we have. And with that in mind, then being able to look at how we can give, and how we can give to the center which we want to preserve, which we want to grow. And so there are two ways that we can do that. And that is through, one is online through the Venmo app, which is up there on your screen. Or the other way is to send a check to the Treasurer Jim Massopust. And so that is what I encourage you to do as we circulate, as we give forth, so that we receive back. And that's the way. So we can together say, I recognize that all supply flows from the divine givingness of spirit. My gift is a continuation of this divine flow. I give and receive from this infinite supply. I give in faith, in love, and in joy, and it flows back to me in kind. And so it is.
Thank you, Lisa. And I will come back to you for the benediction in a minute, but
Okay.
Yvonne is going to give us some announcements. Yvonne, honey, you're still muted.
Oh, shoot. You didn't get to hear me say announcements. Da-da-da-da. Oh, well, now you heard it. I wanted to be like Lisa. Anyway, Monday evening is our prayer group. From 6 to 6:20, we come together and we do a silent prayer for our center, for one heart, one home, one heart, one home, one mind. Anyway, prayer plants the seeds of tomorrow. I got that off of Michelle's letter that she writes, and it's true. And that's what we're doing, is planting the seeds for what our wonderful center will become, is and will become. Tuesday evening, we have a Zoom meeting from 6 to 7, and Reverend Michelle says she will lead us in a playful and prayerful spiritual mind treatment in keeping with the month's theme. But I have a feeling we might also have to rest, which would be perfect. Friday night, we have the OHOM online party, and it's at 6 o'clock. And it's a great place to talk to your friends and find out what's going on in their lives. And you can even bring a glass of wine or a cocktail or whatever you would like, since you're at your own house when you do it. And then the last thing we have is we do have a kindness fund that Raylene started, and she would like to elaborate just a bit on it. So take it away, Raylene.
Thank you, Vaughn. I'm very happy that we have a kindness fund that our community supports financially. And if you know of someone who you feel could benefit from some encouragement and having their spirits lifted, please contact me by email, and I'll put my email in the chat room, and I will send them a gift by mail from our One Heart, One Mind community. I may send a book if I know what the person might enjoy, possibly a book from one of our classes or guest speakers topics, or a Science of Mind book, or my personal favorite, a box of chocolates or a bouquet of flowers. It'd be easier to drop off the flowers rather than mail them, and we can arrange that too. It's very fun to give, and it feels so good when I mail off a kindness gift. And it's a very nice gesture, yet what feels so good to me is showing how much we love and care for our community through kindness. And it actually lifts all our spirits, the giver, the receiver, and all our spiritual community. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, it's so easy to hear the announcements and then forget that they exist. But truly, if you know someone or you just feel like you would like to reach out to someone from our community, please follow through with that for Relaine. She loves doing it too. I did want to say that we had one more thing. We had Judy Hirsch as our presenter on last Wednesday, and she did a lot of, she presented some of Joe Dispenza's work, which was really fabulous. And she is also a heart map practitioner, and she's going to be back with us. Now she changed the date to April 27th. So just, I'll start putting it in the e-newsletter, but she is going to be with us again to talk about heart and brain coherence, which is profoundly important in our philosophy. So if you would like to join her, just make a mental note of April 27th. And now we're going to have Lisa do the benediction, and then Jesse's going to take us out with a song. You're muted.
I should have just left it off. If we could come together once again in consciousness and remembering that we have, that there is a cycle to life, and that it includes both play, work, and rest. And sometimes we get overweighted with the work piece. And I would like to see us this week pay attention to how we can really have those moments of rest that take us within and allow us to really have that sense, that intuitive sense of following Spirit's guidance and the joy that comes from that aha sense of, this is where I'm supposed to be, this is what I'm supposed to do. And so I know that each one of us is wedded to the concept of growing our consciousness, of becoming closer to Spirit and closer to the unity of all. And so I bless this service. I deeply thank Reverend Michelle for her words, and Jessie for her music, and all of us for being a part of creating a community of spirit that cares for one another. And so I release my word, and we can release it together by saying, and so it is.
Thank you, Lisa. That was beautiful. Thank you so much. And
Yes.
Jesse's going to give us some music.
Okay. We're just going to go out on a very peaceful and restful note. Also, I have to say, Rev, that talk was so fire. So fire. All right, this song is about cycles. All the resting and playing. I sat still and beheld the glory white of the silk upon the dogwood in the early morning light, and a story told to me long ago returned to something wordless as it started to unfold before my eyes. If you wait till all is right, till black folds to white, you'll live like a blind one. And if you hold your gaze to the sky, you'll see how the night gives birth to the sun. Oh, day to night and night to day. Isn't that the blessed way? I lay still in the deep and fertile ground as my body turns to chaos, feeding all the life around. I am home, I'm at peace and I'm at rest, and it only took one lifetime to realize I'd never left here at all. If you wait till all is right, till black folds to white, you'll live like a blind one. And if you hold your gaze to the sky, you'll see how the night gives birth to the sun. Oh, day to night and night to day. Isn't that the blessed way? What is love but to open to the glory that in ordinary morning makes you weep? What is faith but to smile as the leaves change, knowing they'll return again in spring? Oh, day to night and night to day. All of life comes from decay. Nothing goes and nothing stays. And isn't that the blessed way? Thank you.
That was beautiful. You made me cry. It was so beautiful. Maureen was talking about your songs being on Spotify. Is that one on Spotify? I got to listen to that again.
That one's actually on YouTube. So I just posted that on my Facebook. So if you go to my Facebook page, which is facebook.com/Jessie Powers Music, it's on there. Yeah, and I can put that link in the chat.
Oh, that would be wonderful. And the name of the song isn't that The Blessed Way?
The Blessed Way. Yep.
Lovely, lovely, lovely. I am so in awe of you. Thank you so much for that. Just really, really beautiful.
You're so welcome.
Oh, well, I thoroughly enjoyed that. How's everybody